All right, so let's have a look at Google Forms. Google Forms is like data collection, so creating surveys and things like that. And it's quite simple, the layout. It's constantly changing. Google have the last 12 months. So expect when you log on every 3 to 6 months for new features to be added or the layout to change slightly, and that's usually a good thing. So let's go to our Google Suite. Let's click on Google Forms. Some purple icon here. Okay. So you can start off with blank. Okay, you can see the layout. It's pretty simple, and let's have a look at all these features down here, so we can kind of tweak it and make it do what we want it to do. So just simple things like changing background color. You can even add an image. And it kind of lines up with themes. If there's like a birthday party survey, that'd be a really cool little background there. There you go. And always important to give it a name. So let's actually go with that theme, birthday party. Cool. I might want to add a form description. What would you like the most at your birthday? Excuse me. Or this is a survey to find out what people like the most at birthdays. Fix that up. There you go. All right. So you can see here, it's kind of like a box for the first question. Okay. So there's lots of different options for questions. It can be a multiple choice question, a short answer question, paragraph, checkboxes, drop down, linear scale, multiple choice grid. You can add things like date and time to these as well. So I'm going to try and give you an example of each. So let's start with a short answer question. Let's make it really simple. Do you like birthday parties? Do you like to celebrate birthdays? Celebrate birthdays. The answer can be a simple yes or no. That could be multiple choice. And then you might say why or why not. And they might explain that in their short answer, okay, which is usually just one sentence. Down here, every time you make a question, you can make it so when someone starts a form, they can skip past certain questions that they want. If you want them to answer all the questions, it won't let them complete the survey if you've put required on there, okay? If you don't like the question, you can delete it, and you can duplicate the question again. So I'll just create a copy right there. So I'm going to get rid of this question. Cool. So that's an example of a short answer question. So I want to add another question. Oh, actually, let's have a look at this. Actually, we'll come back to it in a minute. Let's add another question. I'm going to make it a multiple choice. Let's see, what's a multiple choice? What is your favorite party food? So option 1 might be party pies. Add another option. Let's get rid of that. Add the option there. Let's make it sausage rolls. Spell that right. And let's just say chips. Now, obviously, I'm not doing a great job with the questions here. They're not super relevant or anything. You can see here when we're adding multiple choice questions, we also have the option of inserting an image that might relate to that. Okay, so really for this type of multiple choice questionnaire, adding an image doesn't really enhance or is not really necessary for the person to respond to. So it might be something like, what is your favorite photograph? If you're studying, photography or something like that, and you could have like, the desert photograph, the ocean photograph, the Antarctic photograph, and you can have those links there to the images that you're actually talking about. I'm going to make this a required question again. And there we go. So that's all set up to go. So that's a multiple choice. Let's add another question. I guess a paragraph question is pretty similar to like a short answer question, except you're obviously saying expecting, I should say, respondents, people who are completing the survey, to give you a pretty big answer. So you've allowed for a longer answer to be written. So explain what happened on your 5th birthday. So you might be trying to get an idea about exactly what happened. So a long answer. Make that required again. I like to do things like that. I usually make all my questions required just by default. Let's add another question. Let's try checkboxes. These are pretty cool. So you might say choose the best answer. What do you dislike the most about birthday parties? So your first option might be, let's say, buying the present. Could be seeing people you don't like. And then you can keep going with that, and people can click those boxes, make it required as well. And I might leave the other options for now. I think just as an introduction, the multiple choice, checkboxes, paragraph and short answer will be enough for you to kind of get started. And once you've got an idea about how to use those, I think just through a bit of playing around and exploration yourself, you could probably get the drop downs and the linear scale, multiple choice grid, things like that, kind of work them out yourselves. So let's have a little bit of a tweak over here. So add title and description. Now this might be if you've got your survey in sections. So let's just say the first section was, do you like birthday parties? Why not? Explain what happened on your 5th birthday. Choose the best answer. Let's just say, for example, another section of a birthday party survey might be something like future birthdays. So birthdays in the future. Thinking about like when you turn 18 or something like that. Really doesn't lend itself well to what we're talking about here, but it's great because you can have different sections in your survey, and that gives people an indication that they're done answering those certain things. So, as a teacher, a really great example of having different sections was if it was a math survey, a maths quiz, this part, the beginning might be about addition, and then I might say this is the next 5 questions relate to subtraction, and then the next section might be multiplication, then after that division. So that's what that's kind of handy for. I can add an image that might be relevant to the content. So I might insert a picture. Let's just say Batman. Let's insert that picture. Give it a title, Batman symbol. And then the questions I have after that would relate to that specific photograph. Okay, you can change just the positioning of the image. But this is really helpful. Like if you got, there might be a, spot the difference picture, something like that. Anyway, you can basically just insert the picture in there, and then the following questions would relate to that picture. Obviously, you can insert a video, which is really cool, and similarly to the image is you could say, watch this video before answering the next 5 questions. Batman and the Joker. Okay, and then your next 5 questions could relate to that video. So, as I said before, we had kind of titles there, and then when you section off like this, it could be a completely different topic. Okay, so it could be a completely, like the same survey, but a completely different set of information that you're getting people to answer. Okay, so lots of really good options here in Google Forms. Let's talk about the settings then, and how you actually collect this information, how you send this information out to people, how you collect it, and then collect it in a way that you can actually do something with it. So your responses, you click on here to check and see when people have responded to your survey, but I haven't sent an invitation out to anyone yet, so we'll get to that in a moment. So let's go over to settings here. So in the general settings, you can collect email addresses. Okay, so that means when someone answers and you're viewing all of their answers and responses to the form, it'll have their email next to it at the end, and that tells you exactly who answered and why. It's really important that you tell people that their responses will be collected, or if it's an anonymous survey. Okay, so a lot of the times things you do in class, you don't really need to know that one of your friends exactly what their responses were. You can limit it to one response, so that means they can only answer the question once, which is pretty handy actually. Restrict to Catholic Education Office Canberra Goulburn users. I mean, that's not a bad idea. That just means basically only students and teachers within our archdiocese can actually interact with this form, but you might have people with other Gmails, like your parents or friends in other schools who you want to participate in the survey, so you'd uncheck that box. And then there's options for the respondents, people who do the survey. They can see a summary chart and text responses, and they can edit their responses after they've submitted them. So that'll be entirely up to you whether or not you want those things kind of checked. Presentation. These are just nice little things. Shows a progress bar, like you've answered 10%, or you've answered 2 out of 20 questions. Shuffle question order. I've never really used that. And then a confirmation message at the end. Your response has been recorded. Thank you for answering this survey, etc. Quizzes. Assign point values to questions and allow auto marking. Now, you can assign marks to quizzes, but I really don't want you to do too much of that yet. That's something your teachers might give you to do, but provide to you to do. But I think from a student's point of view, you're not really constructing quizzes for people, you're more just collecting information. Okay, so I mean, you can still play with that by all means. Have a go. That's really fun stuff actually once you really get into it. Alright, so let's cancel that. So let's go over here to more. So you've got a few options. You can make a copy of this form to use later. Get pre-filled links, click on that. Answer questions that you want to pre-fill, then click submit. So that's up to you whether you put that kind of information in. Add collaborators, again, get people to work on the quiz with you. It's always really important for group work. So always make sure private, only you can access, and then add collaborators. So I might add Mr. Brown on there. And then I send him, and it goes into his Google Drive as a notification that Gareth Wigg has invited him to be a collaborator on this form. Okay, so done. Right, so once you've, when you want to send this form out to people, you click send. So automatically collect respondent's username, so you might want to tick that. And then you can, there's a few options for giving to people. You can always do shorten URL. You can give somebody the link. So you can copy and paste that link, then email it to people, or you could write it on the whiteboard. Teachers will do things like that. If you've created email groups, which hopefully you have, you can just type the people's names in. So what should I type in? Mr. Brown's name, like all the teachers should come up for me. I put in ST because I've created a group called St. Greg's 2016. So that's all of the staff here at school currently. So if I was to click that, you can see a few teachers and staff's names like Mr. Walsh and Mrs. Hall, their names have popped up. So that's pretty handy if you've already got groups sorted out. Subject, it's always important when you get in sending an email to people that they can see when they're looking through the emails what it is that you've sent to them. So survey, please complete. And there might be a message there. And then you can include this form in the email, okay, which is usually pretty handy. I usually tick that box off. And then I just click send. and then that would go out to everyone that I've added in the to section here. So you've got options there, email, provide people with the link. Remember, shortening the URL always helps. I don't know why anyone wouldn't do that. This embed, this is something like if you were to create a website, you can put the link for this form in a website, but that's something we might do toward the end of the year, to be honest. So let's cancel it. So once it's all been sent, as soon as people start answering the survey, when you log on to the form, in this responses section, it'll start coming up here and it will look really cool. There's two ways you can view it. One is in the Google Forms section, and if I go to another quiz in my drive, let's see if I can find a quiz with some information. Here we go. Here's a St. Greg's Teacher Literacy Survey. So this was sent out to the teachers, I think, at the beginning of the year. You know, asking teachers about silent stain reading and silent stain writing and stuff like that. So let's go to responses. You can see I've got 24 people who responded. So let's get out of that. So this will give me a summary. And you can see here, you know, it gives you a bit of a graph, how many people responded and said, I think it's in percentage, so 8%, doing it this much time, 20 minutes every day, gives you a pretty good idea. And then sometimes it'll present the information, you know, if it was a short answer, you can see the short answers here from the teachers, which is pretty cool. So that presents, and sometimes the information is presented like in pie charts, which is really, really handy. That's a really great visual. How often are you using worksheets in your literacy block? So 41, almost 42% said never, and that was 10 of the teachers. So that's one really good way to see all your information. The other way is if you click View Responses in Sheets, this little green and white symbol over here, you'll actually generate a Google Sheet, which we've already looked at, I think, and it will have the information spread out like that in a big spreadsheet. Now that's good if your survey's not too big and if the responses are really short, like just one number or a simple word, true and false, things like that. You can see for this type of information, it's not a really good way to collect it. It's way too big, but it gives you some important data. Like it'll tell you, it'll give you a timestamp, like when somebody answered, like the date and time that they completed the survey. But you can see here, obviously, I didn't collect like the emails of the particular teachers because that information didn't really matter. So yeah, so hopefully you've got a really good idea about that. Maybe we'll just click on individual responses. Oh, here we go. This is great. So responses to this survey are kept private, so I can't see exactly who's answered this, but I can look along number 2, number 3, so 24 respondents, and see individually what they've written. Okay, so that's kind of cool, and that's probably only really good if you want to see individual responses if you've collected the names or the emails of the particular person who completed the survey. But this is, I think it's a much more user-friendly way. But if you're familiar with using Google Sheets and comfortable with the spreadsheet layout, that's a much quicker way, depending on the information, to see all the information at once. Okay, so have a play with Google Forms. Create a meaningful form. Try and create different questions. So use all of the certain. Let's see why this isn't popping down. There we go. Try and use at least 4 types of answers: short answer, paragraph, multiple choice, and checkboxes. And then at a later date, certainly play around with that. Remember, a visually pleasing Google form is, you know, people are going to I don't know, it's just more engaging if you've thought about the layout and make it nice and neat. And make sure you formulate your questions. They're very specific. So because it is a form, the idea is that you're sending this out to people and they might be answering it without you there. So the questions that you ask have to be really specific and make sure that people can understand them. So you have to sometimes take a little bit of time to think about formulating a question that seems perfect. So you don't want people to be like thinking, what do they actually mean? They've repeated themselves, they've spelt things incorrectly, etc., etc. So have fun with that, and